Stick together, Miss Chris Dall.
All the men and women who unselfishly defend their country, patriots. The Sullivan brothers were patriots. These 5 Irish-American men from Waterloo, Iowa. Their love of each other, the love of their country, was directed by a simple motto. We stick together. They were called the Fighting Sullivans. At least that's the name Hollywood used in the story of their brothers' lives. They had their share of fights even before the war. Life in Waterloo, Iowa was tough in the decade before World War II. And the boys, George, Frank, Matt, Joe, and Elle, were rarely seen apart. They enjoyed each other's company and were always ready to come to each other's defense. Tom and Alita Sullivan created a good home for their family on Adams Street. Tom had a night job on the railroad, which required him to sleep during the day. Alita's full-time job was with lots of help from their daughter, Genevieve. They enjoyed anything to do with the outdoors, including hunting for geese, ducks, and rabbits. The boys also loved fishing and had many adventures on the Cedar River. They once found an old leaky boat, patched the holes with mud and sticks, then went sailing. When the repair job failed, the craft started sinking. Everyone but Elle, the youngest, could swim, but luckily he was rescued by a bystander. This event solidified the bond between the brothers, and they vowed to protect each other in the future. Their fearlessness and drive for adventure were unshaken. Joseph, known as Red, owned a motorcycle. He made quite a name for himself as a racer. Sometimes the boys even climbed the railroad water tower to say hello to their dad. Rumor has it, the boys also had some musical talent and often sang Irish melodies. During the Great Depression, education wasn't a priority for some American families, so the Sullivan boys were allowed to drop out. The brothers got jobs at the Rath meatpacking plant and earned enough for recreation at the local taverns and pool halls. A weekend highlight was dancing to the big band music at the Electric Park Ballroom. On Sunday, December 7th, 1941, the Sullivan brothers were lounging in their living room, reading the Sunday paper and listening to the radio, when an announcement interrupted the music. The Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor. No one, including the Sullivan brothers, could imagine how the world was about to change. They immediately thought about their good friend Bill Dall. He spent so much time with their sister that he was almost considered a sixth brother. They knew Bill was serving on the Arizona. Soon the news came that he had been killed. Now the war was personal. The boys left the room to discuss their plans, the same plans that thousands of Americans were making. Their dad knew what they were talking about and asked them, "What shall it be, boys, Army or Navy?" George and Frank had already served a stint in the Navy, so they convinced their brothers to go that route. Alida had overheard the discussion and was already crying when they announced their plan. Al, who was the only married brother with a young son, could be exempt from serving. However, his wife knew he would be heartbroken to stay home, so she encouraged him to follow his brothers. They were told that the Navy didn't want relatives serving together. The Sullivans wouldn't have it any other way. A strong letter from George convinced the Navy to bend its policy. After 4 weeks of training, the brothers were assigned to the light cruiser Juno. This was wartime. The ship was soon headed for battle in the South Pacific. The Juno's commander, Captain Lyman Swinson, knew this ship was fast. It was heavily armed, however, its armor could never withstand a torpedo attack. The Navy sent another memo to the fleet discouraging family members from serving together. They knew the fighting would be fierce, and they were offering reassignments to split up families. Ironically, there was also a set of 4 brothers on the Juno who decided to be reassigned. The Sullivan brothers thought about it, but decided once again to stick together. In November of 1942, less than a year after Pearl Harbor, the ship was engaged in heavy fighting in Guadalcanal. The Juno was heavily damaged in the battle, but it began limping back to safe harbor. On their way there, another torpedo struck the Juno. Sailors on the other ships described the explosion as one that no one could survive. Just over 100 of the nearly 700 aboard survived the second attack, including George Sullivan. After a week in the life rafts, only 10 survived. Most, including George, died of their injuries, dehydration, or shark attacks. Back in Waterloo, rumors of the Juno's loss began circulating. Alida, desperate for the truth, wrote a letter to the Navy. When the same recruiter who had signed the boys up showed up on Adams Street, Tom Sullivan asked, "How many?" "All 5," was the reply. Anyone who has experienced the loss of a family member can understand their deep sense of grief. Losing 5 sons was almost more than anyone could bear. Can you imagine all of your future plans for birthdays, family gatherings, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, all destroyed in an instant? All of Waterloo shared their grief. Sympathy poured in from across the country. Even President Roosevelt penned a personal letter. that their sons did not die in vain. They toured the country at their own expense, permitting the sale of war bonds. In 1943, a leading Christian, the USS Sullivan, the ship earned 9 battle stars in World War II and 2 more in the Korean War. Hollywood made a movie about the boys, and there are many other tributes in the city of Waterloo, Iowa. Dall's granddaughter, Kathy Sullivan, christened the USS Sullivan in 1995. There isn't a member of the United States Navy who doesn't know the story of the Sullivans. We look forward to the day when every American knows their story. The Sullivan family symbolizes all Americans who sacrificed to serve our country. Military members and their families all suffered during war. The supreme sacrifice made by these 5 brothers represents the best of the United States. As citizens of this country, the least we can do is remember and never forget who they were. The people are gone, but the memories of what they did can last forever. We owe that to anyone who has served our country.